Hi team, welcome to 10 Talks. Today's conversation is going to take you on quite an adventure. And this conversation is more about inspiring and encouraging you to honor you, go for what matters to you, have the courage to be for you in a really amazing way to win your well-being. And today's conversation is all about how to go from impossible to possible. And Eryn, thank you for the gift of sharing you and your journey. And we'd love to hear a bit about the power of your story.
Well, great. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to join you on this today. So my name is Eryn O'Brien. I am currently the Vice President of Talent Inclusion at Eastman. I've just had this phenomenal opportunity, kind of once in a lifetime opportunity to really step back and start to think about what really drives me and what creates energy for me in a way that allows me to really contribute to my fullest. So it's just been a great last few months as I've been on this path.
I know, and such an exciting path. And so I want to go a little bit before we share the beautiful journey of the path you've been on. Tell us a little bit about how you got there and your journey.
So I've been working in corporations for, over 25 years now, and have had a wonderful career. And so I grew up in that era of what I call sort of the bootstrapping era, right? So which is where you work hard, you kind of power through all sorts of challenges, and I've really prided myself over my career at being someone who's known for being able to get things done, not letting barriers get in the way. And almost the harder the challenge that's there, the better it's been. And it's been a lot of fun. And I've learned a ton. I've had the opportunity to be in some great spaces, working with some great people, and it's all been really positive. And I hit a point, and I don't know really. I mean, I think there's probably multiple things that drove it. I think certainly, our with COVID and the pandemic caused a lot of people to really start stepping back and thinking about what's important and what do I value? And so I think that was certainly a part of it. I think it's also, after having a really successful career for many years, you start to think about, well, what else?
What's next?
And is this who I am? Me in this corporate sort of environment, or is there something more that's there? And so, I've always loved to learn. I've always had a passion for, having a purpose and feeling that I can make a difference. And I thought, if I think about over the last few years, I've done a lot of kind of tweaking of things that I've done, but I'm starting to wonder, am I still brave? I thought of myself earlier in my career as being brave and kind of putting myself out there, which I think gave some of the opportunities that I had. But I'm starting to wonder, is some of that still there in me? And even should it be at this stage in my life, right? And so I think all of those factors caused me to say, I want to find an opportunity to really push myself out of my comfort zone and really see who I am at my core and what's there.
I love the question of, am I still brave? That is beautiful. And most importantly, love you challenging yourself to ask that question. So take us from that question and your answer to figuring out all the possibilities and you thinking, I don't even know if this is possible. And then what did you make happen for your I'm possible?
Sure. So I think I started out like, probably like a lot of people do, thinking, well, maybe it's my job. Maybe I just need a new job. And so I started looking down those paths and it's like, no, it's not my job. I actually work for a pretty good company and I'm actually doing some pretty good things there. So I don't think it's that I need a different job, but I thought what I probably need to do is just challenge myself in ways I haven't been challenged in a long time. And so I thought about what would take me as far out of my comfort zone as I could imagine, as far away as I could imagine, in an environment where I didn't have any of my, what I call my kind of my usual or my typical things that kind of help prop me up. And so, what might that look like? And I'm scared of heights, so it wasn't really just jumping out of an airplane. I wanted to be something that also really had some sort of purpose to it. And so I was kind of mulling around with all of these different things. And so I thought, well, gosh, I've always wanted to go to South Africa. It's been on my bucket list of places to go. I like animals. That seems like those are something I'm very interested in. I know nothing about really ecology or conservation. I mean, I know some basic stuff, sustainability is important and conservation efforts are important, but I mean, I don't really know a lot about this area. And so, and is there a way I can give back somehow in the area of wildlife? And, long story short, I was doing some research on the internet and came across an organization that I thought initially was going to be just about volunteerism. I could go volunteer, in South Africa to work on a game reserve with some animals. And as I talked with them even further, they said, well, if you want to go for a significant period of time, which we think is better, you'll get more of the experience the longer you go. Why don't you go as an intern? And I thought, intern, that's like something some people in their 20s do. They said, well, yeah, most of the people who go are in college, either somewhere in the middle of college or just finishing college and looking at getting a career in somewhere in the conservation or wildlife kind of space. But if you want to do an internship, it's a great way to go deeper. You'll have to take some courses. You'll actually get more involved in doing some different things. But that would be a way to really maximize the experience, would be to take on this internship where you're going to go very deep and be able to just throw yourself in for 3 months and learn as an intern about what does it mean to really contribute in the area of wildlife conservation. So I said, well, hits all my targets, right? South Africa is about as far away as I can go. I know nothing about this. Now we're going to add the piece about I'm going to be an intern with a bunch of 20-year-olds. So that's going to be way out of my comfort zone because it's not my typical peer group. Communal living, which I haven't done since college. But I thought, let's try it out and see what happens.
Well, we want to unpack that incredible journey, and I want to start with your 10 moments. So,
Sure.
team, with our 10 moments, it's on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is low, 10 is fabulous. The desired outcome of 10 moments is really just to anchor in what matters to us and to call it a 10. It's nothing about perfectionism. It's all about just the joy of the most important things that matter. So, tell us about from the minute you got there or any parts of it or before it, just your 10 moments as a summary.
So, I mean, there were so many 10 moments, but I think a few things that I would say that really stand out. So one 10 moment was I actually got there and showed up.
Yeah, a little victory dance, right? Woohoo, well done.
Again, traveling alone to a place I hadn't been, and showing up there. I think that was probably my first 10 moment was saying, I'm really doing this. I took the leap. And so that felt really good to actually kind of, because there's lots of, that self-talk that can go on. That's all the reasons why you shouldn't. And was able to just put them aside and actually show up day one. And so that to me in of itself, being on base that first day saying, I'm really here and I'm really doing this.
Yeah,
that was
like pinching yourself, like, oh my goodness, did I
that was
really
a 10.
do this? Yes.
That was a 10. I think another 10 moments were, so what I was doing is I was in this wildlife conservation research intern, on a game reserve in the middle of the bush in South Africa, right? Which means you're on this, 20,000 acre game reserve, with, the big five. So you've got elephants, you've got rhinos, you've got leopards, you've got lions, you've got the, the buffalo, you've got all of these, animals that you've only heard of, at least for me, maybe seen something in a zoo, but never really, face to face, right? In this, and lots of others. So you've got the tower of giraffes standing over there. You've got a group of zebras standing over there. You've got the hyenas. You've got the cheetahs. You've got just hundreds of birds that I'd never seen or heard before. And so there's something about nature that feels very primal to me, but just the ability to be that immersed in nature where, and we were out in the field, in the bush, 8 to 10 hours a day. People say, did you get bored? I'm like, no, like, it was, you'd be out there and you could hear the calls of the hyenas, or you would see the sunrise and the beautiful colors that are out there. Or the piece of just, watching the lions walk across the road in front of you, hearing these different bird calls. I mean, all of that was just a series of 10 moments, to recognize when you stop, and I was a person who never stopped, right? Always going, multitasking, all those kind of things, but just say, I was going to stop and learn to be in the moment and hear and see and smell. I mean, those things that when you're constantly focusing on something else or where you're headed or what you need to do, you just miss. And there's another woman who was there, another intern who was there, and we got to where we'd be out in the vehicle at different times, and it would just be some amazing moment of seeing or hearing or feeling something, and we would just look at each other and we would say, that was a 10. We're like, yeah, it was a 10, because it was a sense of peace and oneness that I don't think I'd felt in a long time. And so that was certainly, a 10 moment. So being there, being able to really let go of a lot of what I thought made me who I was, to just kind of feel that inner peace was a real 10. And then just learning a ton. I learned some amazing things just about conservation and what's important. And, again, always thought I kind of understood and knew, but being able to feel like I'm actually contributing to something that matters for the world and for their long-term sustainability of the world was a 10. So those are just a few examples.
That is a beautiful collection. What do you want to name your collection of 10s?
I think it's finding oneness.
That is beautiful, beautiful. So let's go into the details of, first of all, your winning strategies on how you set yourself up for success, really kind of the season that you did this, some of the details. So as our team is listening and they're thinking about, first of all, wow, this is the impossible that I want to make possible in my life. Just get real with us in terms of how we made it happen.
Sure. Well, it started by taking the plunge, right? So it was actually not overthinking it. And so, it was actually within a week from when I kind of got this random idea, started doing some research on the internet, found this group that was doing this, and had one conversation with the contact at the company that kind of set this all up. And he's like, well, do you want to think about this and then come back? We can have a follow-up conversation. Said, no, sign me up. Right. So part of it was, just taking the leap and saying, this is the right thing, was going to go do it. Right.
Well, and I love you taking action on it and trusting yourself, right? That's a great exercise.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where just, you kind of had this wild, random sort of concept and just things just clicked into place. It was just like, well, this, it's like, oh, just it seemed like every turn things were clicking into place. I'm like, I'm just not going to question it. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm not going to, because, I just need to go. The details are the details. I'll figure them out. Right. So so first of all, it was just taking the leap. But it wasn't like I decided and then went the next one, right? I mean, it was, I am somebody who has a life. And so I wanted to make sure that, I did this amazing experience, but also that there would be something when I come back on the other side.
Yeah.
And so I did have about 4 months. I put it about 4 months out. So that would give me time, both from a professional and a personal standpoint, to say, so what are the things going on that I can set up for success? Yes. Because I don't want to be there feeling guilty that something's not happening that should. I have a high sense of responsibility. I have a high sense of commitment. And so I was sort of, once I kind of signed on the dotted line, if you will, just got very diligent. I was like, so what are those things? And there was a lot, of things that, as I started making lists, I'm a list maker. I started making lists about what are the things that I'm going to be worried about that I don't want to be worried about while I'm there. And then just started literally checking off the list. And, a learning for me was there's a number of things that, I don't believe I'm irreplaceable. None of us are irreplaceable, right? But you do kind of get a sense of, there's a lot of people counting on me for things. And so how is that going to continue? If I step away, how is that going to continue? And I think one big learning for me was there are a lot of people, I don't have to put as much pressure on myself as I probably do, that, I'm not the only one who can do these things. And intellectually speaking, I don't think I'm that arrogant that thinks I am. But practically speaking, I found there's a lot of things that I was continuing to take on that I probably didn't need to. And so, some of the work that we did leading up to it, was talking about what are the things that I'm doing that are tens and nots, and realize there's a lot of things I have been currently doing or had been currently doing that just really weren't things that were in my 10 bucket. And so it was a great opportunity to say, let me think about how do I transition away from some of those things? Again, sets it up for success. So I don't have the guilt while I'm gone, but also means I don't have to come back and do those things when I come back.
Exactly.
Right. So starting to remove some of those things that really weren't tens in my life, it was a great impetus to do that. And then for other things, being really thoughtful about how do you kind of finish some things off, kind of get some things in motion, so that again, it just really cleared the deck. So I didn't have to worry about any of it leading up to it. I had classes I had to take. So I put a schedule in place. So how do I do this, while I'm working so that I get those courses done. So I'm not doing that all last minute. My packing list, I thought about, I had 3 months to pack, and that sounds like, why would it take 3 months to pack? Well, do I have this and do I have that? And but just being very systematic and disciplined over time, that 4 months went by very quickly. But by the time I got to the end of it, about a week before I was actually scheduled to fly out, I was ready.
Yeah.
I was ready with all the practical things that had to be taken care of. But as importantly, or maybe more importantly, I was ready mentally because I had cleared the clutter out of the stuff that might get in my way of being able to fully immerse myself in this experience.
Yes, just really respecting the preparation. I mean, that's a winning strategy in everything we do in life. And I just really value the intention that you took, even though you were going on, it was 3 months, correct? That you went
3
away?
months, yes.
Yeah. So you went on a 3-month sabbatical, if we want to call it that, in terms of adventure. And you took 4 months to train for it. So many times people think, oh, I want this, it's too hard, I can't do it. And breaking it down into seasons, and really you had your pre-season that you were training for it, and very intentional to train and be set up for success. And 3 months there where you were fully engaged and fully present and just transformational. And then we've got our reentry, and I know you and I already have the reentry scheduled in terms of, okay, let's get you back on a training schedule so that when you reenter, you're just as successful as when you left.
Right. And I think that was also important too, was really being able to break it down into those different phases, because it would have been very easy to not think about the reentry until I got back.
Right.
And I do think putting that into that preparation phase, preparing for the reentry as part of the preparation,
yes,
helped me think about things in different ways. So again, thinking about, what are the things that aren't 10? So when I reenter, I don't fall back into those habits or those patterns. I think that was really important, because one of the things, we talked about it, but I know I shared this with a lot of the other people on base too, who were there, this whole concept of, I was there for 3 months, and I feel like I've been grown, I've evolved, I've changed. There's lots of things differently I'm thinking about myself. But when you re-enter, people want to put you back in that box that you were in when you left.
Exactly.
And it's been needing to be very intentional about how I've re-entered to not fall back into that. And people are well-intentioned, right? They missed me. They felt like I added value, whether it's on the personal front or the professional front. People want to get you plugged back in.
Yeah.
And I've had some amazing conversations. There's a phenomenal woman who at work I was able to set her up as my kind of to really step into my role while I was gone, because she's somebody on my team. She aspires to that role as part of her career. So it was a great opportunity to start handing some things to her while I was gone, and she did a phenomenal job. Right, did a phenomenal job. Well, I came back, and even she's been saying, well, now I'm going to give these things back to you. And I said, why?
I love that question.
I said, not only have I changed, I said, you've changed over the last few months. And let's not take either of us backwards. Let's talk about how we are here and how do we take this forward. And I think she was a little surprised by it. She's like, well, I thought you'd want to come back to all these other pieces, and I said, I mean, I could, but that's probably doesn't serve either of us well, right? So let's talk about, we're both different. Let's continue this journey together, based on how we both have shifted over the last few months. But there's so many examples of where, and in some cases, people haven't evolved, right? So I can think of other examples of people who are waiting for me to return, right? Just waiting for me to get back to do this, solve this, fill this gap, whatever. And it's like, yeah, but I'm not at that point anymore, right?
Right.
So let's renegotiate that.
Mm. Well, I want to talk about the before and after you, because it is so powerful to have the courage to go for it. And again, have the courage to step into the change versus that rubber band theory of bouncing back into, okay, that was just a moment in time, rather than taking that moment in time and all the transformation that happened and leaning into it to where it's the new you. So tell us about your before and after, just things that happened that have changed for you.
Well, so one I've already alluded to a bit, right? Which is this the power of really being in the moment.
Mhm.
And again, I think I prided myself on the multitasker and focusing on lots of different things and kind of being in lots of different places. And I think I learned this summer how much I've probably missed.
Ah,
And missed not just in terms of like work output, right? I mean, one could argue whether you're more effective multitasking or focusing on one thing. There's lots of research that talks about that, but I've taken it even more to a personal level and just say how much I've missed in enjoying what I've contributed to.
mm,
Because I've been so focused on getting it done or focused on this other piece or this other thing or this other thing that's going on. And you just miss the opportunity to get the fullest pieces out of the moment, the fullest learning, the fullest enjoyment, as well as probably my fullest impact,
mm.
because
Well
I had
said.
so many things that were going on. And so, as I sat in the bush, watching the sunset, starting to hear the night calls of animals coming out, and just realizing there are so many things to appreciate. There are so many things that feed my energy. There are so many pieces to something. There's just a complexity that I'm probably not paying enough attention to, that if I more fully be in the moment with people and with places and with work, I think I'll be more impactful,
Mhm.
but I think I'll also feel better about it.
Mhm.
You know, which leads to kind of a second kind of thing before and after. There's there's probably some feeling of burnout that I was having, and I hear that a lot in the workplace now. Just see it around me. People are feeling burnt out, and again, it's been a pretty stressful last couple of years with everything that people have been dealing with and the environment that we're in. But one of the things I started thinking about as I was doing more work with around kind of the sustainability and the ecology, we started thinking a lot about the earth and sustainable resources, and what creates a sustainable, world for all of us. And I started translating that to how do I think about myself and others around me as, the humans are a limited resource too. And we talk about, you don't want to clear cut a forest just because you need the wood now, because the long-term impact on that is you may get the wood you need today, but you're not going to have the wood you need tomorrow, right? I mean, kind of an oversimplified example. But people are the same way. So if we clear cut, our resources and what we're giving to be able to achieve something right now, we're going to burn through our human resources in ways that are just not sustainable. It's not good for an individual. Frankly, I don't think it's good for companies. And I think it's something for companies to really be thinking about, how do you create renewable energy in your human assets?
Beautiful.
And so I don't know what that means or looks like yet, but it's something I'm really trying to think about for myself. Is I want to come in and manage the forest. And so, yes, I need to maybe take down certain trees or prune certain things here and there that are going to meet some kind of need that we have here, but I'm doing it in a way that the forest will live on in a very healthy way. And I think that's what I need to do for myself in terms of how I work to do that. Because again, it was wonderful to take a 3-month sabbatical to go do this, but that's probably not reasonable to do every single year. But if I actually create this, maintain the forest in a sustainable way, I can take smaller sorts of actions to kind of keep that energy renewed. It doesn't need to be kind of a whole 3-month sabbatical. So, a change kind of before and after. I'm thinking about that very differently for me. I'm thinking about that very differently for the team I lead. How do we think about being more intentional and choiceful about the trees that we choose to prune, and do it and create that, and do it in ways that create that renewable energy for ourselves. Because I think I'm worried about the world of business, because I just think we're burning and churning through human resources in ways that we will find ourselves, we're already starting to find ourselves in difficult positions.
Well, I love the from burnout to just being me, right? In terms
Mhm.
of starting to figure that out. And
Yeah.
you have absolutely spoke of something that our whole world is just craving. And, I can feel our team thinking, I would love to do what you're doing, and I
Mhm.
can't. And of course, there, being able to take a sabbatical is a gift. And I know you have a personal life and you have a professional life. And so I want to talk about really the performance barriers that are just part of the reality of being able to make things that we really need part of our reality. So, what were the performance barriers that got in the way of you being able to kind of figure this out and your actions to change?
Yeah. So a couple things, right? So one is there's always the, can I afford it, right? I mean, it's a financial deal to take time away to do something like this. And so again, I think that comes being down to the planfulness and kind of thinking through, okay, what does it really take? What does it really mean? How do I think about the trade-offs? And again, there's going to be different solutions for different people depending on your circumstance. I was fortunate that I've done good planning financially, that I was able to take 3 months away, and that was a reasonable thing to do, right? So that's one. I think other barriers are other people's expectations of you. That goes back to the planning piece, is being really, really intentional to think about it from other people's perspective. So again, I don't want to let people down, right? I mean, that's my own high sense of responsibility. But it can become a barrier, because you start thinking about, oh, well, these people are counting on me, or this needs to happen. And so it was being very open with people about, hey, I really need to do this. This is important to me. And my commitment is I'm not going to just drop you, again, whether it's on the personal side or the professional side, I'm just not going to drop off the face of the earth. I want to be able to set things up before I go in such a way that, I'm still committed to whatever it is, that I'm still a part of whatever it is, and that I am coming back, right? I mean, I didn't move to the South African bush forever. I had a very defined start and end, and I was really clear with people about that. It's like, don't expect to hear from me in this window.
Right.
But I'm going to do everything before I go to set things up so that whatever the concern is personally here, that you feel good about that. And then when I come back, that I am coming back, and it was funny. The day I had said I'm coming back in the office on this date. Well, the day I walked in the office, the number of people who said to me, "You're actually here." I mean, it just shocked me, right? But I think it was that there was making sure people feel like, hey, it's safe. You are gonna come back and do these things. So that's where the planfulness comes in, which with the barriers, is to really start to chunk through it and think really intentionally about what do we think those barriers are.
Right.
But then instead of saying these are the reasons why I can't, it's saying, so how can I address that one?
That's right.
And taking more of that proactive, positive sort of approach to it. The other performance barriers, I think, are all of the little self-talk things in our heads about why not, right? Well, I can't do this because I'm too old. I mean, everybody else is doing this is in their 20s. Okay, so right, but I mean, but there's a lot of stuff like, I don't deserve this, because I shouldn't do this because I'm too old, I'm not skilled, I don't have this, I don't have that, and starting to challenge yourself to flip it on its side and say, well, what if I did? What might happen? And I had a lot of those where I had a lot of reasons why I couldn't. But I started to been trying to really teach myself to challenge and say, well, what if I did? What might happen? Versus, well, I can't because. It's very, very easy to figure all the reasons I can't and all of the horrible implications that will happen when it goes wrong, right? That's a little bit how a lot of humans are wired, me included, right? But starting to flip the script and say, well, what if I did? What might happen as a result? And you start to see a world of possibilities that I hadn't before.
Beautiful. Love it. And so tell us about, do you feel like you're still brave?
I think so. I'm still not going to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
but I think I've realized, I think what it also reinforced for me, kind of going back a little bit to kind of what I learned, kind of the before and after. Um, I can do more than I probably thought I could.
Mm,
Um, and I deserve to do those things.
love that.
And so I do think it's, uh, the recognition that discomfort doesn't necessarily mean don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does mean being thoughtful about it, right? But being thoughtful in a way that starts to lead you to how come and what you might learn versus why not.
Right.
Because if I hadn't been intentional, I mean, I guess another way to look at it is I could have just signed up and gone and not done any of the preparation and not really thought about stuff. I don't think I would have gotten the learnings out of the summer that I did, because I would have been worried about all sorts of stuff. I wouldn't have set things up for success, and I would have probably re-entered and then just try to scramble to catch up on everything I missed. Right. So, that preparation piece was very important. But thinking about how can and why should, I think I realized I'm probably more brave than I thought I was.
Little victory dance. Let's see it. Well done. Yeah, love it, love it. Okay, let's talk about a typical day. So, I mean, we've been there now. We've kind of talked about the mental side of just your preparation and everything. Take us there. Let us know really from the minute you woke up till you went to bed, just what was your day like?
My day like? Oh, so we woke up early, right? So this was not a vacation. This was a real working internship. So we wake up, 4:35 in the morning. So we would be up before dawn, and then we would go out into the bush, so that we could catch the nocturnal animals before they went to sleep. We could hear the dawn call of the birds as they were waking up, and then see the diurnal animals as they were kind of getting up and starting their day. And I mean, as a research assistantship, we're basically the ecology team for this game reserve, and so you're collecting all sorts of different kinds of data. Whether you're counting different numbers of bird species you see, or you're tracking, which animals you see and where they're located, or predator-prey kind of relationships. I mean, there was a lot of different kinds of data collection, right? But it would be up before the sun and being able to see the sunrise and see the activity happening around the bush, for about 4 or 5 hours in the morning, right? So we were out for a period of time. Then we would come back to base, and our base was in the middle of the game reserve. I mean, no fences around us, very primitive. We had electricity when the sun was shining because we had solar power, and if the well was working, we had water. Not much internet, but we would spend time on the base, and it could be a variety, like entering data that we saw, or because it was the internship, sometimes lecture, sometimes I was studying because I had to be able to learn things like I now know 60 South African birds by their call, right? Because you have to identify that stuff when you're out in the field. So sometimes studying. Sometimes we went into the community and we went to the schools to try to teach the kids in the community about conservation and what was around them, because funny enough, even though they were living in the area, sometimes because the animals are still behind the game reserve fences, they may not have seen them. So helping create that awareness in the youth about why this is important. And then we would go back out in the field around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and be out for another 4 or 5 hours to catch the diurnal animals as they finished up their day, and then the nocturnal as they came in. Again, you get to see the sunset and all the beautiful colors, and maybe you got to see the hyenas as they were coming out of their den, and they had cubs while we were there, and so you see them playing out in the outside of their den, or you might see the leopard as he was out trying to hunt for his meal for the evening. I mean, it could be any sorts of things that you would see, but just again, being out there and kind of seeing, just, our role was really to observe and capture information, data that was used for lots of different purposes. But just right in the middle of nature doing its thing.
And then what? You come in and dinner? What? So what? How
Yeah, we'd come back in and have dinner, and again, you got a bunch of 20-year-olds, and so some social time after dinner, and hopefully get a few hours sleep before you would get up the next day and start it all over again.
And so from a data collection perspective and just the learning, What were some of the most interesting things that you learned that were unexpected to you? I know all of it was a blank slate. So just, share with us the learning.
Um, so some of the things we learned, I mean, we were doing research around, again, I talk about predator prey relationships. And so kind of what's the movement of different animals around the space that they had, and how does that influence, how people, how healthy they are, how much they're feeding, kind of what the population increases and decreases are, right? So there's a lot of just kind of game management, the reserve management kinds of things. A couple of things I thought were sort of interesting. So one is, I don't know if you've ever seen Lion King, but I got to tell you, the hyenas and the wildebeest got a bad rap in the Lion King because they were really neat animals, right? And so, and yes, there is a circle of life. I mean, they talk about that in Lion King, right? But actually be able to witness it, different animals and have their purpose, and that's part of how the whole cycle works. It's but no one is good and no one is bad, and being able to start to really see the personalities of things like the hyenas, and how cute they were and kind of what they do. It's like that's who they are and what they do, right? But they're just wonderful animals. I think one of my favorite moments was being out with the elephants. And so I have a real passion for elephants, but knew nothing about them going over there. And it's amazing, there's a very large herd of elephants, in the reserve. And it's amazing how you can lose an elephant. I never thought you could lose an elephant because they're so big. But they would be right in front of you, and then they would walk up in the bush, and in 30 seconds you're like, I don't see them at all. Where did they go, right? So it would be just crazy to me just how quickly animals would disappear into the bush, and again, it's kind of their their evolutionary design and kind of and kind of how that all works. But being able to see the herd, there was one time we were out and nobody knew where the elephants were. We thought we knew where they were, couldn't figure out where they were. So we had gone down in this riverbed, hoping we could maybe find kind of where they may be. Well, first you see one elephant kind of come out of the bush and start drinking, in the river. I'm like, oh, that's right. So you're kind of watching that. Well, then here comes another, and then here comes another, and then here comes another. I mean, so eventually, and then now they're starting to walk across the road in front of us to the other side of the river, and to see just this entire herd of elephants emerge out of the bush. Like, again, where did they come? They just seem like they magically, emerged out of the bush. And watching them, eat and drink, and hearing them talk, which, the elephants communicate in very low, kind of rumbling kind of tones. And again, as they, and it actually goes ultrasonic, so below what we can even hear, with our human ears. But hearing them as they kind of talk, and then feeling their conversation, because again, it's that ultrasonic kind of tones that are below our actual human hearing, and just the sense of community of a herd of elephants as they interact with each other and support each other and communicate with each other, and just being completely surrounded by that in this riverbed at sunset was just amazing to observe, just how they operate.
Beautiful, incredible. And so what words of wisdom do you have for yourself and for us in terms of really the gift that nature gave you, the gift that those animals gave you, the gift the experience gave you that we can all learn from and live differently because of the experience you had?
So I would say there's probably kind of a few things I would say. So one is just do it, right? Yeah. If you are feeling a pull and a need that just something isn't settled right, listen to that. Listen to that in you, because that matters. You don't need to settle for who you are, where you are at whatever stage of life. We're never too old to reinvent ourselves. And in fact, I highly reinventing ourselves, every few years, just to be able to step back and kind of do that check yourself to say, am I really living myself to my fullest potential in a way that best serves me and those around me? My guess is there's a reinvention that we can all be doing on a regular basis that kind of helps keep that in check. So I think that is one lesson: is if you feel something, listen to that and check out what that may be. It may not mean you have to go to the South African bush to do it. It's going to vary from person to person, but listen and go do. I think the second thing I learned is the importance of being in the moment. And really paying attention to what's around you at all times, and making the most of that so you don't miss, because there's just so much richness and depth in what's possible that, I find for myself, I was so busy searching for what's next that I was missing what was right in front of me. And so, I saw that reinforced a lot while I was out in the bush, just if you stop and you wait and you look and you listen, just like the elephants, magically appearing out of the bush, you can find it. But you need to, attune to the things that are around you. Another lesson, I guess, would be, or advice, is never stop learning. Because there's always more to learn. It's a big, wide world out there. And frankly, I think it's more fun when you're exploring and finding some things that are new. Maybe, and maybe one other one I'll just put out there. Again, I kind of go back to I was the anomaly in the group, all these 20-year-olds, right? It would have been very easy for me to say, well, let me show you from my years of experience, how you should think about this. I mean, it was good for me and them. We kind of threw my age difference out the window, and nobody acknowledged it. We sort of got over it very quickly. And it's amazing what I learned from all of them.
Right.
In terms of just, they had this wild appreciation for the earth and where the earth is going and what we're doing and things that we need to do and how quickly we need to act, and the ideas they had to how to solve this. And I mean, I got so much energy from them. And, kind of in unexpected ways, or things I learned and energy I got from them, which is, maybe the advice is, look to everyone around you. Because you never know who's gonna spark something in you that you didn't know, or didn't care about, or didn't want to learn, because it came from lots of different, very unusual places. When I think about some of the people that I met, if you had said, here's a profile of somebody, and this is somebody that you're gonna be spending a lot of time with, I mean, just on paper, I would have probably said, really?
Yeah, I don't think so, right?
But when I think about the people that I really connected with and who I've learned from, they are profiles I never would have chosen to just engage with. But when I did, wow, I learned a ton.
Wow, such a gift to be able to go from am I brave enough to the joy of just being you and being able to experience new learning, new understanding. So Eryn, thank you for this gift. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. It's been a total 10 listening to every word of it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciated being able to share, and hope some others may find a nugget or two for them in it.
Absolutely. So team, it's up to you. Are you still brave? Ask yourself the questions that you've been thinking. Love the words of wisdom as before you. Go for what matters. Listen to you. Take really good care of you. Honor you. Respect what matters. And have the courage to go out and create from impossible to I'm possible. Thank you, Eryn.
Thank you.